Welcome, everybody, to another great episode of Cloud and Clear, the CEO series. I'm here in Washington, D.C. at the offices of Stagwell with the one and only CEO of Stagwell, Mark Penn.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me, Tony.
Thank you for agreeing to do this. We've been working together for a while, and I've been looking forward to this day. So thanks for making the time. Look, you've had a really interesting and illustrious career, from being a pollster to being CEO of PSB Insights to Chief Strategy Officer at Microsoft, and of course now the CEO of Stagwell. As far as you want to go, I'd love for you to share the audience just your career story. These episodes are as much about the company as they are about the person. So I'd love to hear more about that journey.
Sure. Well, interestingly, my first business was at age 12. So I sold stamps for collectors through the mail with advertisements in the New York Times, and nobody knew that I was just a kid,
Wow.
right? And so it was my first business experience. And I was reviewing this recently for something, and it turns out Michael Dell did exactly the same thing 10 years later.
Wow.
And so I've always been kind of an entrepreneur from that age 12 on. And so I started my first business really in college, basically doing polling for political candidates. And at that time, I built a computer and a kit. There was no PC.
Right.
And so we had to use the university IBM 360.
Yeah.
And if you just had one comma wrong, you'd have to wait another 2 days for the results to come out. And so I read about these computers in a kit, built them, then programmed them in BASIC, which was too slow.
Right.
So I had to learn enough assembler to reprogram them, to make them fast enough to give us, really, in 1977, overnight polling that we could really accomplish with this little microprocessor. So
Wow.
I've always been intrigued with the intersection of business, marketing, and technology. So that's why it was funny that over time I would get to go to Microsoft, become Chief Strategy Officer, because really my career through that was, doing polling, running political campaigns, and running Burson Marsteller, and then going to Microsoft, all before founding Stagwell in 2015. And so I've had a varied career across business and politics, but it all started with that PO box and hiding the fact that I was really a 12-year-old.
Seems like you understood advertising really early. You certainly understood the power of data and technology really early. So it's a really interesting spectrum, I think, of experiences. But from the age of 12, what gave you the idea to get into the stamp business? Was it your passion for stamps, or your understanding of the power of advertising to sort of market anything?
It was like seeing a marketplace,
Yeah.
right? It's like I was always like, I could do this.
Yeah.
And I was getting it from stamps on approval from other companies. I said, you know what? I can go to the auction and buy a bigger block. And so I did that. I only did it for like a year or year and a half, and then I put away the best items. But when I graduated college, I said, did I want a stamp collection or a summer in Europe? So, so it was an easy choice. But those principles of business, I even had one person who didn't pay, so I sued him.
There you go.
Luckily, the day before I was supposed to show up in court, he paid. So, but early, being an entrepreneur, I always tell people that this is an amazing country because of the entrepreneurial opportunities that you really have.
Very true.
And the availability of low-cost technology, right, is really fundamental, to those capabilities. And today, the ability to target marketing and target advertising, people don't realize it makes smaller and smaller business possible.
Yeah.
Because before this kind of refined targeting, you couldn't really, reach most people with very narrow products. You had to really advertise big, broad products. And so people don't realize how technology has really opened up business and entrepreneurial capabilities.
It's very true, and I think that's even more true with cloud technology, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But take me back to the concept behind Stagwell. In your, on your website, in your own branding, you sort of call yourself the challenger. but describe what Stagwell does and describe sort of the marketplace, the ecosystem of this space at the time of its founding, how it's evolved, and what special role Stagwell plays in sort of driving value to the market and to customers.
Well, I had a small business and we grew it, and then we sold it to one of the holding companies, and then I managed the larger properties in the holding companies, and I kind of saw what was done well and what was not done well. A lot of the financial management was just great. A lot of the people management was not so hot,
Mm,
and the technology management was really poor.
mm,
And so part of the reason I then went to Microsoft from working with WPP is I want to say, well, am I really like, okay, I built microprocessors as a kid,
mm.
but do I really know what I'm talking about today? And I think my Microsoft experience said, yeah, I kind of know what I'm talking about. It was very interesting to kind of see what the engineering cultures were really like at Microsoft,
Yeah.
and to, I was always at the intersection of how you apply technologies to life and what would kind of work out and be meaningful. So I really found that to be a rewarding experience, and I probably actually would have just stayed there, but Steve Ballmer, who recruited me, really got exited the company, and then he said, that idea you told me one day for a new marketing company, I'll be your chief backer. So I went to Satya, and Satya said, well, you got to stay another year. And so I stayed another year, and on September 15th, 2015, with an assistant, opened up Stagwell with the vision of taking on the larger marketing companies and growing a new marketing company to scale, with the key differences being that we would be collaborative in nature, because I thought too much energy was wasted in internal competition, and we would be technologically savvy
Mhm.
in a way that I felt the other companies weren't.
How does that translate to your capabilities, your customers, and then how does it relate to? I mean, this is a really interesting market in terms of the structure of Stagwell itself, but also your competitors as this uh, sort of a collection of other companies, right, in different markets with different specialities and different global regions. Like, how does the way that Stagwell do it translate to unique value for your
Well,
customers?
marketing is not a simple process.
Right.
And increasingly, it's come from a pretty simple process. Make a TV ad, put it on TV,
Yeah.
right? Maybe have a couple of billboards. I got a few magazine ads, to a highly technical, complex process that begins with have a data set, understand where you can find your customers, how you can increase the loyalty of those customers, how you can find the new customers in the funnel, how you can target them, and then through what mediums you're going to target them, and then what creative vehicles you're going to use for that. So it's become so much more complex
Hmm.
over time here. And it really takes, I think, a technologically savvy and integrated company to produce that. And then not every company needs all of the same skills.
Sure.
So, so we've tried to create kind of almost what I call a shopping mall of marketing services, and people can shop for those things that they really need, and put together teams of people across those services in order to execute the marketing. And again, we also, our larger vision here is to grow all the way up to global full service, and we're, I think, poking up with larger and larger, more global accounts. We're expanding our global footprint,
Yeah.
and at the same time also have tech platform self-service.
Hmm.
That ultimately our internal businesses have to be built on tech platforms, and those platforms can also be made available to people who want to do it themselves.
Yeah.
And there's a good do-it-yourself market,
Yeah.
but there's also a good full-service market, and there's a kind of a managed service market kind of in between the two.
Yeah. I think there's a great segue to the concept of Stagwell Marketing Cloud, SMC. Can you describe the strategy around essentially a product offering being born out of a services company and what that means in terms of um, your goals to become that global player that's going to take more and more share from the other players, as well as I think just grow the market.
I think in forming Stagwell, I said, look, we're going to start as a tech-infused services company, and then we're going to add tech products. I didn't do tech products first
Hmm.
because I found that, well, you get some hits in that, amazing hits, but you also have huge risk.
Yeah,
And
I totally agree with that, by the way. Yeah,
that huge risk is often in where do you get the clients, right? And when you're in the services business, as I like to say, we have the clients.
right.
And so if we can extend the business out, right, in a less risky way to some of these platforms, it's really ultimately the same clients.
Hmm.
It's a division of P&G or GM will do things full service, and another group will do things self-service, right?
Hmm.
And once you're in the companies, I think you have a wide, range of tools that you can sell. So, but the Stagwell Marketing Cloud really was then born and said, look, there's communications, research, and media. We're building platforms in each of those, and we're spending, I think, a lot of time and effort working with some of your teams as well to organize those as 3 product platforms,
Right.
going into each of the major marketing spaces and giving people a set of tools that they need and can rely upon. And I think we're none of them are fully there yet. Each of
Hmm.
them, it always takes a little longer than you would like in
Hmm.
software development, but each of them, I think, is making significant progress,
Yeah,
and getting to market.
I totally agree that building a product sort of in concert with your customers almost, right? Based on their needs or describing them to you. You're doing this work for them already, I think is a formula to greatly increase the probability of success for these products. So doing services first, technology enabled, launching Stagwell Marketing Cloud. That's the order I would do it too. So we're excited to be with you on that journey. Uh, and I think part of what brought us together is the decision around building this on GCP and Google Cloud. And you have a great team and fantastic team. It's a lot of work to sort of centralize some of these capabilities across all the different, portfolio companies and a shared service model for IT in general. Then I think it's even a bigger challenge to build something, this transformational. What was the decision around picking Google Cloud to be the platform on which SMC will run?
Well, in many ways, we're a tech company, right? If you look through our list of clients, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, the
Yep,
whole run of tech companies, I think, are favored, I think, as a result of the approach. So we do business with all of them,
of course.
and but I think that Google really did present a very compelling platform for moving forward with the Stagwell Marketing Cloud products, and I think generally for saving internal costs. And you, of course, is a great partner helping us kind of get there. To me, it's so interesting to see technology go from time sharing when I started out as a
Yeah,
kid to individual computers, which was
yeah.
everything, back to, okay, time sharing by another name, really,
Right, right, right.
with lots of smaller processors, but it's still
Yeah,
ultimately the same idea.
yeah,
Uh, and so, but I do think that the internal migrations that we're doing with you are really paying off, quite successfully, both in terms of operations, in
yeah.
terms of the simplicity of those operations, and in terms of the cost.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance. You want to give on the migration side, you want to give your portfolio companies some level of autonomy, but you also want to take advantage of scale and you know um, a common set of security standards, common set of operating methodologies. So, with regards to, I mean, we can't have a podcast without talking about AI. AI is not new. Obviously, there's aspects of generative AI that are new, and I don't think you can run a successful business today or build a product today without thinking deeply about how to infuse these capabilities, not just for its sake. Don't just say, you have AI or there's AI in the product or we're using AI, but in a way that does, produce unique value that accelerates things, that creates things that is very difficult to do without. So how do you think AI in general impacts advertising and marketing in this business? And then, we'll lead that into how it's informing the product design decisions around Stagwell Marketing Cloud. I'd love to learn about both.
Well, I think companies now are in a little bit of a stasis
Mhm.
in when it comes to AI. They want to apply it, but they're afraid of it.
Yeah.
They're afraid it's going to make mistakes or get them into legal troubles. And so I don't think they've fully kind of went to a green light. They're more of a yellow light,
Yeah.
I think, in terms of what I'm seeing right now. And I think people are still digesting the answer to the basic question of how does AI change things.
Yeah.
I think from our perspective, it changes things in a number of important ways. The simplest of which is just internally, we look at which processes could be simplified through AI. So
Mhm.
obviously, certain visual creation processes,
Yeah.
certain storyboardings, certain simple advertising processes are created. If you can put the cat in the mountain, you don't
Mhm.
have to find a mountain and do a shoot with the cat.
Right.
And
Right.
and so some of that is made considerably easier and more cost effective in terms of production, but production was always an ancillary
Mhm.
service compared to the core creative service. Then we look at it different areas where, say, survey research and things can be analyzed more simply or pre-analyzed with a run through, by an AI bot. So we're looking for those areas, and then even internally, just in finance,
Mhm.
we get like a couple of 100,000 individual bills. So
Mhm.
we can turn. It used to cost us maybe $3 to process each one of those, and with AI, we can get that down to maybe 15, 20 cents.
Yeah.
So we look for areas like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of the nuts and bolts.
Mhm.
Really exciting area for us in AI is our digital transformation division.
Mm.
They built everybody's websites, they built everybody's apps, they built everybody's COVID testing system,
Mhm.
they built everybody's CNN magic wall. I think now they're figuring out those kind of case studies in AI,
Mhm.
of which one of my favorites is say the office supply company that's having their website rebuilt, so you can say, hey, I'm having an office party. What do I need? How many people you got? And then it
Yeah.
tells you all the things you need, and then you can click and buy them. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of assistance, I think, that AI will give people. Now, I look at the big change in AI being simply this. Every science fiction depiction of technology always ends in technology being driven by speech,
Mm.
right? And you watch Star Trek, it's
Mm.
always driven by
Mm.
speech,
Sure.
right? And the reason it can't be driven by speech before AI is that it didn't understand what you were saying,
Right.
right? And you had to use a very, very precise word. In fact, I've redone all our conference rooms here which never ever used, with three very simple commands. Computer, turn on wireless display, or computer, switch to computer,
Very Star Trek.
right?
Yeah.
And I put those commands and I put them in big letters,
Yeah.
and people don't need to touch
Yeah.
any pad, because that's the way technology should be run.
Yeah.
But if you divert by one word from that, it doesn't understand what you're saying. The biggest thing is you'll be able to say, hey, I really want to see the PC now on the screen. Can you turn that on for me?
Right.
And with a large language model, technology can understand what you meant to say
Right.
and execute it, more or less. And that means the whole way that people interface with technology changes. And then it also means that that technology is the brand. So
Definitely.
if the technology responds, hey, why don't you do it yourself? Okay, then that's a certain personality,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so I don't think people realize yet that the personality needs to be programmed,
Yeah.
and that is not just programmed but designed, and
Yeah.
that will form the essence of your brand, because
Yeah.
that is the way people will interface with technology, and it is vastly different than they have ever really done so yet.
Yeah, it's quite magical, but there's this element of risk that you describe. But there's real opportunity to create a differentiated experience in speech or written text or whatever in a way that's much more natural. Um, computers' ability to understand intent is, of course, greater now than it has ever been before, thanks to the large language models and sort of almost like this intuition that these systems are developing. Um, but people are certainly afraid of the wrong answer or the wrong tone, and I think that in a way that people talk about AI disrupting a lot of industries, a lot of jobs, and I think certainly that's true, just like every wave. But I tend to be more of an optimist in thinking that yes, certain jobs will change, maybe even go away, but I feel like new types of jobs will be created, and I think new levels of productivity will be achieved. So, you're going back to the science fiction uh, comment where a lot of them end in speech, but a lot of them also end in like some kind of dystopia. What's your vision of the future with AI, as it comes to, I would say, this economy, as it comes to this beautiful, private sector that we have in the United States, but also as it comes to Stagwell and the future of the company?
Well, it's interesting because I've really went back and kind of traced the history of marketing, and marketing always benefits from the introduction of new technologies.
Yeah.
Right. Originally, the first marketing was in Mesopotamia when a coin was issued and it had a mark on it that identified that this was a trustworthy coin. And so
I
that's
did not
really
know
the
this.
first example of
Yeah.
the impact of branding.
Yeah.
And so, but what always happened was, okay, radio would come along, then came radio ads.
Hmm.
TV would come along, then came TV ads. Facebook would come along, then Facebook ads, right? And AI is going to come, and then AI ads are going to come,
Yeah.
right? Because each uh, technology platform finds that the best way to broadly monetize itself is through advertising and marketing. That if you rely upon subscription or fees alone, that eliminates maybe 30 or 40% of the marketplace,
Hmm.
and that advertising really allows you to achieve universal penetration,
Hmm.
right? And so consequently, marketing gets more complex and changes and becomes different. But so far, we get more and more interesting work every time a new technology is deployed.
Yeah.
And I also do worry sometimes when some of these things require fewer people. When I started doing the surveys, we required 63 people to do a survey, 50 interviewers, we had samplers, we had key punchers, and now we can do the same work with 3, and we do more surveys for more people because the survey process, I think, is more democratized and
Yeah.
more available
Yeah.
to companies and people. So there are changes. The changes will, as I think you correctly say, create new and different kinds of jobs. People just still are energetic and forward. So I'm very optimistic that we'll have more utopia than dystopia, except in the military field. I mean, it certainly worries me.
Yeah.
Again, every science fiction thing, it really, the end point that you have to worry about is when AI controls your weapons. And when AI
Very
controls your
true.
weapons, or AI can control people who control the weapons.
Hmm.
And there are some real danger points here that worried me. They're
Hmm.
not in how AI is going to help me when I go into McDonald's or Starbucks
Right.
and suggest my order for me,
Yeah.
but it is in the military and when it comes close to the weapons.
Very good point. I mean, you're in the epicenter of where a lot of those decisions are being made, where a lot of the policies are being written. Of course, we in the private sector always worry that the public sector isn't moving fast enough in some of these, things, whether it's regulation or the level of caution. But I'm hopeful that we figure it out and we have more of a positive future than the risk. But I think the risk cannot be ignored, and I think neither can the new threat vectors that exist by virtue of the technology that the bad guys get to have with AI. So it's almost like as much of a digital arms race, technology arms race, as it is a military one. Of new technology comes out, intended and made for good. The bad guys are going to use it too. So how do we get better at prevention and detection of technology being used for bad? It's this constant thing that we'll also have to track, and being in this industry and working with Google, obviously, I think they take responsibility in AI very, very seriously. They get accused of maybe sometimes not moving fast enough. I think with AI, they've moved faster than anything else that I've seen over the last 17 years working with them. But part of that reason, I think, is the caution of making sure when they release something that it's safe and secure and can resist misuse, and is something that Stagwells of the world can trust to build their products and offerings on as well.
Good. We're going to count on you to keep our products safe and safer.
Yeah.
As we integrate into the Google Cloud with those products and to the Google Store, to get those products to market.
Very excited to work with you. Thank you so much for doing this. Our future is bright together, and you can count on us to lean in and be there for your journey towards world domination.
All right. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for listening to Cloud and Clear. Check the show notes for links to this week's topics. And don't forget to connect with us on Twitter @CloudandClear and our website, sada.com. Be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app.